Hello, everyone. I'm not sure if I'll upload this video on May 14th, 2023, but if I've already recorded a few videos today, so if you see another video later in the future, and you see me wearing the same exact outfit with the flat cap and all, um, don't think that I wear the same outfit every day. That might be the case, but I do just sometimes record videos wearing the same clothes on the same day, more so. But anyhow, today I thought I would make a video that will be very boring. I think I'm going to split it into two parts. So it'll be my conversion story. It's a very boring conversion story, almost overly boring. It bores me to even tell it. Um, every time someone asks me, I'm gonna stop telling them. I'm just gonna send them the link to this video. This two-part video. The first part will be my life starting out in high school. I know I look 25 with the beard, but I was only in high school. I was in high school 3 years ago. I'm only 21 years old now. So back when I was an 18-year-old boy, senior in high school, that's really when I um, became religious. I won't spoil any details. We'll talk through my entire life, so you'll see my entire life laid out, the entire story of Michael Snellen. So, the first part we'll get to, I think it goes to about the summer of 2022, and I had to look at the calendar at the bottom of the screen to remember what year it is. I don't keep track of the time. I don't even know what day it is half the time. I didn't know what year it was about a week ago. I was like just thinking. I was like, what year is it? Oh, it's 2023. Anyhow, that this article that I'm going to reference and read through, you'll see it. It was uploaded on Medium about a year ago, and so at the time it was uploaded last June, I believe. It tracked my entire life for those previous 2 years, and so I'll have to make up. I'll have to make up things for the second part. There's no source for the second part. The writer stopped. The writer Michael stopped writing about his life after that previous article. But it can be done. The second part is when I actually was baptized, confirmed. So that's the more interesting part, I'll warn you. But this first part does have some highlights. You'll see just the general trend of me discovering religion, my experiences in college. Some of these stories will be embarrassing to look back upon. I will perhaps blush. But I think they all have a purpose and a meaning in the ultimate story of myself. And so I guess making this video is more of an interest to myself. Hopefully some of you find it interesting, or I would go ahead and tune out if you think it would be a total waste of time. I'm sure you probably will be for everyone watching at least, but stick around and perhaps you might enjoy it. So let me just bring up the article here. And I'm still getting the hang of this StreamYard, but there it is. Let's make it bigger. There we are. How I Found God and Catholicism. A 2-year-long journey through my mind to my faith today. So see, this was, it's not even a year ago yet. May 26, 2022. It's a 41-minute read. But we'll get through it fast. We'll skim along. We're not actually going to read the article. It's a badly edited article. You'll probably see tons of typos. I'll probably have struggles deciphering what I wrote. This article is composed of all my journal entries. I started doing those in about the fall of my college year. So you don't have my high school journals. I did not write in high school. I became a writer during my college years. But all those journals, every single day, I used to do it every single day. Now I don't even do it once a month. It's terrible. I should probably get back into that. All these stories are being lost. Perhaps for the best, but back then there was journal entries for every day, so I put those in this article, the ones that were relevant to the story. So by the time I got done with this, it took me a week to write. I was so tired that I just threw it up on Medium. I didn't go back to actually proofread it. I read through it once, but I was like, after that, I'm done. So take it with a grain of salt. The greatness of this article. It sounds like a very interesting article with the title like that, but it's pretty plain, just mostly journal entries. So anyhow, you have this photo. This is really interesting. I now work at this place. A year ago, I did not work at the Abbey of Gethsemane. So you'll see how a high schooler started working at the oldest monastery in America, where Thomas Merton used to reside. So the monastery did play a big part in my conversion. That'll be interesting for me to go back upon, read up upon. So we'll start. It was on March 12th, 2020. If anybody remembers March of 2020, that was the pandemic, the start of the pandemic. So I start out with a terrible sentence. On March 12th of 2020, I went to school. Very plain. I've since grown as a writer as well. I'm just going to kind of skim through this because a lot of it's just not interesting. It's really boring. That night, I laid on the couch and bellowed. What was I doing? I don't even think that word makes sense in that sentence. Bellowed in joy as I read the words, Governor Beshear recommends all Kentucky schools close starting Monday. 4 days later, I read, Kentucky has their first coronavirus-related death, and Governor Andy Beshear orders all restaurants and bars in Kentucky to stop in-person service. So you just see the effects of the pandemic there, just changing the entire world around me. Unbeknownst, I would not return to high school ever again. I was entering a solitude I have yet to emerge from. Now that's a good line. It's kind of funny to see how back when I actually used to read, I don't read nowadays. I'm trying to get back into that. And hopefully you'll see some videos of me reading them on this channel. But back in the day, I used to read a lot. And so you see me using words like unbeknownst and bellowed. I don't even know what that word means, like smoke bellowing up. I wouldn't use those words nowadays. Anyhow, May 14th was the day of my graduation. I likely stumbled out of bed after staying up throughout the night. And this was terrible. I was staying up till 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. So it's not even the night anymore. I was staying up till the next morning and then going to sleep and waking up at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. I was playing video games with my friends. Fortnite was the one for those who have concern. In these pictures, my face is chubbier. I was definitely fat. I'll have to find that photo. It's like me sitting on the couch with my dog. And I was like, I don't even want to remember that photo. It's a terrible photo. The worst photo there is of me. Back then, I didn't take much photos of myself, thankfully, because that was a period where I was just such sloth, having the pandemic, being home during the lockdown, doing nothing besides video games. I was just like my entire human person was going down in the depths of nothingness, of purposelessness. So anyhow, that's I would attribute most of my conversion to the pandemic and the lockdowns, and we'll kind of see that a bit. Just this period of solitude, which more so made me. It took me away from all the distractions in my life, because before this period of me playing video games stuck in my house, I was at my friends' houses playing video games or like just running around town, just doing nothing, just loitering at McDonald's late at night, or just shopping at the shopping mall, just doing things like that, all distractions. But anyhow, like this, it cut me off from all of that. I was alone. I was not in a strong solitude, but I had more time for contemplativeness. And so eventually, coming out of high school as well, Like that entire period of my life, my school years, having this purpose in life, this direction, it was suddenly gone. And of course, I was going to college in the fall, but like just realizing that life is really opening up. The adventure of life is opening up. So all of that we'll keep in mind as we read along. Um, I had no aspirations then. I would play video games until my body couldn't keep itself awake, and that is very true. Eventually, my eyes were fixed on exercising. So yeah, I realized I was getting chubby. I was like, I got to start exercising. And I wasn't terribly chubby. I was probably 20 pounds heavier than I am now. Maybe not even that. But it was really just all fat. I was like, I had no muscle then. I was really skinny. Um, Not a good look. But anyhow, I don't know really what started this. I just I think, I mean, I'm trying to do this now. Like, I just think about getting back into exercising. I put it off for months. I'll probably start working out next August. I'm thinking about doing it now. So I was probably thinking about getting into exercise probably during the winter of this year of 2020. But I guess it just eventually came about. So I think I was realizing that I had to change, really, just grow into a man. And that's really what any boy discovers, just this call to grow into a man, to do something greater, to become greater than they are. So, yeah, I ran my first mile in nearly 5 years on June 19th. Wow. My memory isn't as great as it was when I wrote this a year ago, but that's correct. 5 years since I ran a mile. Very shameful. I mean, right now it's been probably 6 months since I ran a mile, so I can't get too proud, but I'm in much better shape, do physical work every day at the monastery. So, on July 6th, I would begin to lift weights, and you can see the first spelling error, life weights. Um, Anyhow, I do keep those dates in mind. Just June 19th and July 6th, like a year after those dates happened, like I commemorated them. On June 19th, I ran another mile, like um, on the June 19th of 2021, I decided to run another mile to commemorate the anniversary. And I think it's important to build these moments, these days in your life that you just, oh, this is a special day. It kind of builds the story of your life up, the legacy. Anyhow, these new pursuits are they were rooted in me limiting soda and drinking more water around the beginning of May. So yeah, I forgot that. If you just go back to me in high school, I was working at a skating rink in Taco Bell, drinking soda every hour on the mark. So I was like, I have to stop drinking soda. So that was like really my first act of discipline, stopping soda. And you see how small that is, but really just that one act, stopping soda and drinking water. And I didn't start out perfect by no means. I couldn't go a day at first, so I would just eliminate a drink maybe at supper. I would drink water, and then eventually it grew to like a week. I could go a week without drinking soda. Eventually it grew to a month, and eventually it grew like several months. As you'll see, I was crazy on discipline back then, in a different way than I am now. I rediscovered that really through. Now it's more of a spiritual discipline. Back then it was actually a physical discipline. And you'll see where the inspiration for that came from. If you look ahead, don't look ahead. Stick to the paragraph we're on. Anyhow, what a coincidence that an anomaly in my routine during this time of limiting soda would lead me to the water of baptism. So, getting rid of soda and choosing to drink water, in a way, very really, that's not a term, really, very really, that's not a term. I just made that up. Anyhow, just choosing to drink water and choosing to stop drinking soda, that led me to the water of baptism. So yeah, I was raised. I had Baptist roots. They don't believe in baptizing children. Um, yeah, don't believe that, but the early Christians obviously baptized children. The Protestants, the early Protestants did, and they still do. Just the Baptist. I better stop talking about the Baptists. I have a few irks with them, and that's for a number of reasons, not even related to me. But anyhow, I was watching self-improvement videos, reading quotes, like those quotes on Instagram you see of like Socrates or Marcus Aurelius, and they have like an inspirational quote. That stuff did help me back then. Um, it was like my first exposure to discipline, really. The world of literature, the world of just culture in general. So anyhow, I remember reading tons of things Socrates definitely did not say, which I know now, because Socrates never actually wrote anything down. But a lot of those people who make those quote pictures, they don't know that. They don't know Socrates didn't write any books. There was some Cicero, Epictetus, stuff like that. One night, I downloaded the Bible app. I read the book of John before I went to sleep. I don't know what caused that. I wish I could remember. That's kind of the bad thing. Like, there's lots of these moments like I wish I knew more about. Like, I've become a historian of my own life, just trying to remember things. And sometimes, like even now, I'll just recall something, and then it will open up a new memory, and it's kind of really cool to see that. Anyhow, it was John, the most mystical book of the Gospels. That was the first one I read. It wasn't the first book I ever read from the Bible. That was Revelation back when I was a curious middle schooler. I read Revelation like 3 times. I think I read it. This wasn't mentioned in this article, but I think I read it at the beginning of the pandemic because I thought the world was ending. I was like, oh, I better read about how the world will end. And so that might have helped. I wish I remembered that. Anyhow, it was reading that, like, just, I think, focusing on Jesus, the character of Jesus. Who was Jesus? I really did believe Jesus was God the moment I read it. So that's not something light. That was almost an awakening. Just, of course, I had roots being a Baptist, going to vacation Bible study, but there was like several years in high school of just distractions. Like I never actually, in those 4 years, considered Christ. So considering Christ again after all that had happened to me in high school, and all of my experiences then of the solitude, just meditating on Christ by reading the book of John, that really made me aware of God. And all these other things are assisting this, like these quotes by the Stoics. They believed in one God, so I could kind of interpret their view of God as being the Christian God. Like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, they have a lot of good stuff, good religious stuff. You just have to pretend they're not pagans, and then it's good stuff, beneficial. Anyhow, I went in the woods one day and found a log. I sat on it over the water and read the first chapter of Ecclesiastes. That was one of the books I heard a lot about. I forget who I heard that about, maybe Jordan Peterson. But that's like one of the most manly books of the Bible. So that's really what I was searching for, manliness. I didn't finish the book at the time, however. It is perhaps one of the most philosophical books of the Bible, and that is very true. The philosophy I was learning about in the self-improvement stuff I was also into at the time brought me into it. I shouldn't have read that line because I already mentioned that. Anyhow, yeah, Jordan Peterson, that's where I first learned about philosophy, like Nietzsche or Kierkegaard. Some of his videos, such as "Who Dare Say He Believes in God?" That was a really beneficial video, just pondering the question of God, like who is God? All this played a part in my edification, a newfound direction with my life. So walking into the woods, into nature, had a profound effect on me, not to act like Emerson. It was something I never did. I used to sit in the house during my high school years. In a short time before college and the weeks leading up to it, I also went on a kayaking trip, a trip to a cave and a hike. And so I was sort of trying to get away from my former life of just sitting in the house. That's what I did during my high school years. I was either sitting in the house or doing things with friends, but like I was going out into the woods, just experiencing solitude, reading Ecclesiastes on that log in the woods. And I think I mentioned this in my journal. Like I was creating like a story almost. I called it the philosopher's log. Just me out in the woods, sitting on this log. It was over a creek. Um, I sat on that and read Ecclesiastes. So all of this was kind of helping me discover what it means to be a man. So somehow, it was probably that early August, I found myself in a Barnes and Noble. I wanted to read books to make myself smart. I said it clearly. So I bought The History of the Peloponnesian War by Thucydides. I definitely pronounced that wrong. However, that book, which I can surprisingly pronounce, is a very pretentious book. Um, it's a very good book to read. I never actually read it, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. Like just me walking into a Barnes and Noble, having not read a book in at least a year, picking up that book and trying to read that. It was very pretentious of me, but I was trying to make myself smart. I also bought The Art of War, The Prince. Okay, those are two bad books. And then the two Homer poems. You know the ones I put in the quote blocks. I forget what those are called. They're not called quote blocks. But anyhow, the two Homer poems are very good epics. I mean, you can't call them poems, but the two epics, those are two of my favorite books. I didn't read them until December. It was December of 2021. So that was like a long time after I bought them. So you see, this was closer to that time. In retrospect, I should have read Homer immediately. I love the Iliad and Odyssey now, two of my favorites. But as you could predict, I chose something else. Ooh, so I'm adding suspense to this story. What book did I choose? Take a guess while I continue to read. It was the day I was leaving for university. I drove my brother to our cousin's house with my two twin sisters in the back. That cousin's house is right beside the house I was born in. Ooh, I was picking up on the symbolism. I was driving home. I turned on Like a Rolling Stone by Bob Dylan. A few weeks before, I remember driving home alone on an hour-long drive, listening to It's All Over Now, Baby Blue. So you see, I was a huge Bob Dylan fan back then. Not much now. I think a lot of his songs are meaningless. However, he does have a good few songs. And I enjoy the folk aspect of it. Just his Christian stuff is good. I would recommend that. The song When He Returns, that's a very good Christian song, really. One of the best contemporary Christian songs there are. Songs like Knocking on Heaven's Door, I guess that's also a Christian song. Just generally, though, I don't listen to much non-Christian music. I probably listen to more than I should. I think right now I'm going through a big Renaissance and medieval phase. So my music history is really has taken quite a few twists and turns. I think it was over that summer, the summer of 2020, that I listened to. I think it was most of the top 100 albums on the Rolling Stone 500 albums list. So I was listening to all kinds of music. I was discovering a lot of classic rock, a lot of the popular pop music, a lot of the indie stuff as well. So I'm a guy who knows a lot about music, believe it or not. Anyhow, it was the first night at college. Me and my roommate, a longtime friend from high school, sat in the parking lot of McDonald's. It was dark. That was a very depressing moment. me and my friend, we settled down in college. And it was a strange night. Like even just remembering it, it's like it doesn't seem real. It's almost mystical in a way. Like just young, not young teenagers, but older teenagers coming to college, like this new world, leaving their parents. They're surrounded by other people who are doing the same. Like the sun's going down. We're all just walking around on campus, checking out everything. We have no idea what anything is. By the second day, you become familiar with all the restaurants and things. But just that first night, like wandering around this unknown land, very magical in a way. But so we didn't eat on campus. I think most of the places were closed. So it was probably 10 o'clock at night. We went to McDonald's and just got McDonald's, of course. I think though it was still the start of the pandemic. The pandemic lasted like 20 years, but anyhow, food was cheaper then. So I think it was like $1.20 to get a McChicken sandwich. And I got like 2 or 3 of those. That would cost you a week-long paycheck nowadays. But back then they were cheap. I wouldn't be able to survive if inflation was happening during that time. Anyhow, I think that moment, it was kind of just a moment of like new beginnings, just sitting alone with my roommate, my friend from high school in a dark McDonald's parking lot. It was like the beginning of a journey, like the credits almost, the opening credits. So I think it took me a week to start reading the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. That was the book. That was the book I started reading first, Meditations. And I gave away my copy. That was a crazy period of my life where I got rid of every book besides my Christian books or the history books. I got rid of like all my classic books, so like all the classic literature books, and good riddance for a lot of them. Like, who are some of the authors? People like Herman Melville, or I wish I could remember a lot of these people, but just a lot of those crass English authors. The guy who wrote the Canterbury Tales, it's terrible. I don't know what you call it, epic poem book. Terrible thing to read. So getting rid of stuff like that, I stuck to the good books, the truly classical books, edifying books, because it is important. You don't want to waste your reading time on terrible books. What you let into your mind that influences you. So you can't expose yourself to bad ideas. However, I did give away that first copy of Meditations. But wait, I didn't get rid of my pagan books, those classical pagan books, Aristotle, Plato. I had a duplicate, and I wish I had it on hand here. But it's from the 1850s, so it's an 1850s copies of Meditations. I was trying to simplify my life, so I wouldn't have kept 2 copies. But that book, it went through a lot. Like I took it everywhere with me that year in college, that first year. I wasn't reading it. It was just like in my room. The same one I have beside me now, actually, is a small bookshelf, 2 levels. And there was just my college textbooks. And then you had those books I mentioned previously. Then you had Meditations, this beat up copy. It became beat up because I read it over the first course of that month in college, or those first 2 months. It took me a long time to read that book. That's a short book, so that was really, it was helping me, I guess, reading just about spirituality, like this discipline, reading about discipline, becoming a man. Like, Marcus Aurelius was really good about that. He's like, wake up when you get out of bed when you wake up in the morning. That was one of his big things. He sounds, most of these modern self-help people are just regurgitating what Marcus Aurelius was talking about way back in the 400s, I believe, or the year 270 AD would be my next guess. I know he interacted with a lot of the early Christians at the time, being a Roman emperor. So that's I think that's very cool. Just read the thoughts of a Roman emperor. I think that, like, just me, a young college boy, just being exposed to the thoughts of a greater man in a way that helps you develop into your own manhood. So this is like just a constant theme. Me going from a boy to a man. I was definitely a boy back then. I still don't think I've reached full manhood yet. I'm still only 21. However, I would call myself a young man. I think Alexander the Great conquered the entire known world by the age of 25. People like Mozart composed their first symphony at age 7, I believe. So I can call myself a man, a young man at least. So this is a good passage. This passage really stuck out to me. I still remember it sometimes, even now today. So it reads, and I'll try my best to emperor pronunciation. Mortal man, you have lived as a citizen in this great city. What matter if that life is 5 or 50 years? The laws of the city apply equally to all. So what is there to fear in your dismissal from the city? There is no tyrant or corrupt judge who dismisses you, but the very same nature that brought you in it. So that very same creator is the one who takes you out of the world. It is like the officer who engaged a comic actor, missing him from the stage. But I have not played my 5 acts, only 3, the actor says. True, but in life 3 acts can be the whole play. Completion is determined by that being who caused your first composition and now your dissolution. You have no part in either causation. Go then in peace. That sounds a lot like what they say at the end of the Mass. Go in peace. So it says, go then in peace. The God who lets you go is at peace with you. So you see, God put you in the world. It's not for you to decide. You didn't decide coming into the world, so it's not for you to decide when you go out of the world. So it kind of, if you're scared of death, just realizing that adds a certain peace to your life. Makes you dependent on God and how he wants to write your story. So 2 months before, my roommate was preparing for a speech for his class. One of the things he said was important to his life was Catholicism. So he listed like 3 things. I can just remember it now. He was standing in the middle of the room. I was trying to work, I think. He had to record a video for his online class. This was back when all classes were online. A lot of them still are, I believe. Teachers are just writing their own paycheck there. They're uploading work from 2 years ago and just letting that run. They're still making, they're still getting paid from doing nothing. They're off in Florida probably, but they have their work up on their online class. Anyhow, that's just me rambling. So my roommate was recording a video. He said like 3 things that are important to him. He was an Army guy, so he said, I think that maybe his duty in the Army. He said like family. Then he was like Catholicism. So that was his 3rd thing, Catholicism. And I was like, I laughed. I said, why don't you just say God? So see, my spirituality was developing at this time. I was coming to know God. I was praying almost every night. Some nights I would still listen to music. That was a terrible thing I was doing back in the day, back in those high school years, junior year, senior year of high school, and up until college, even during college. I was constantly listening to music all the time. I was, as you heard me say, the 100 albums of the Rolling Stone Top 100. I was listening to stuff like that as I go to bed. So that's leaving no time for prayer, contemplation, just distractions. And that was definitely a trick of the devil, just distracting me with music back then. Anyhow, so you see the seeds of my spirituality growing. I was coming to know God during this time. I was praying maybe every other night, every 3 nights. Those nights I wasn't listening to music. Anyhow, I was making fun of him for saying Catholicism. I was like, why don't you just say God? Why is God not important to your life? Why is Catholicism important to your life? More important than the phrase God. So you see, like the Protestant in me, the Bible-only Protestant in me. Anyhow, for the same speech, so yeah, I had to give the same speech, the 3 things that are important to me. So this will humble me reading these. Those same 3 things. What I said was, Since graduating high school, I have been trying to improve myself both physically and mentally. I've since picked up new hobbies I think will do just that. Paying more attention to my health, reading, and learning about business. Back then, I went to college being a business major. I dropped out. I didn't drop out of the major. I just switched to engineering that second semester. And it's kind of funny now. I decided I don't want to do engineering after I graduated with an associate's degree in electricity. As I mentioned before, I work at a monastery now, and I think if I go back to college, I might get a minor in business or something. So you see just the irony of life. Um, the business, of course, being just Catholicism for the modern world. How this entire company developed. It's kind of crazy that it developed if you just look back at my life in 2020, just how far away I was from the man I am today. So this video is getting pretty long, 35 minutes. This is definitely going to have to be a multiple part series because as you can see, if you can see the taskbar here, the logo's blocking it. We're only at the top of the page. This is only the first 2 years of the story. There's still another year after this that I'll have to make up on the go. So this could be a 8-part series, The Life of Michael Snellen. And then we'll have to record another season a year from now. So I don't know. Yeah, leave comments, recommendations. We'll make this a series. Anyhow, I continue my speech. These 3 hobbies help me understand my path in life, fulfill personal goals, and improve my overall happiness. So yeah, I can see I was recognizing how goals help your life, how having these things you aspire toward, how they affect your life. And it always happens more beautifully than you can imagine. That's just the greatness, the majesty of God, that though you fall short and sin, and feel like you don't even deserve God's forgiveness, He will grant you an abundance of mercies and graces. To almost hammer on the point, St. Francis de Sales talks about this at the start of book 3, I believe, of his Introduction to the Spiritual Life, Introduction to the Devout Life. He talks about how just God overwhelms you with grace. It makes you all the more reflect on your own unworthiness. God definitely does that to me still today. Like, I just look around all the blessings in my life, all the things I'm grateful for. I'm crushed with blessings in a way. And all the more it just makes me reflect on my own inner brokenness, all the times I've gone astray in my life and still go astray. So yeah, we won't make this video too philosophical. We'll try to keep it on the topic. So this is pretty funny. I challenge myself to read only nonfiction books. So yeah, I made a challenge to only read nonfiction, as if there's something wrong with fiction. But I think a lot of the self-help people nowadays say that. They're like, why would you read fiction? It's a waste of time. Anyhow, my hobbies during those months back then, consisted of marking off push-ups on my calendar. So I had just a calendar, and every day I would say, like, I would put 30 push-ups. The next day I put 35. The day after that, 40. Something along that trend. And every day throughout that day, I would have to do 10 push-ups in the morning, 10 in the evening, and 10 at night. I would mark them off. I'd put 3 lines. Once I have those 3 lines, you're done for the day. So that discipline right there. I was going to the gym a lot. I was becoming stronger, really. Like, there's no photos of like just how much stronger I became. Like, if you just look at my pictures in high school, I was just like a skinny high schooler. But then during these few months, like, my body was reflecting the developments in my soul. That's true for anyone, just how the body reflects the discipline of the soul. Anyhow, Let me find where we were. So I was venturing around campus with friends a lot during this time as well. I was very disciplined, taking after David Goggins and Jocko Wilnick, just something like that, that bald guy. Anyhow, both those guys are really huge on self-discipline. I watched a lot of their stuff back then. I was eating healthy. I actually did lose the not the belly fat. I didn't have that much belly. I wasn't that fat, but the baby fat around my cheeks and things. My shoulders are more defined too, so I guess it did pay off. Both all of these new excitements, they did. Um, yeah, I don't even know what that sentence was trying to say. This article definitely needs an editing job, but um, it's too old for me to go back and waste all the time on it now. Maybe I'll write a book someday and I'll give everything a nice polish. So I would turn on piano music sometimes. So you see my taste in music start to develop as well. I was listening to Franz Liszt Liebestrom, which means love dream, or Jean-Philippe Rameau. I discovered this guy by finding a record of his at a flea market. He is a good, little-known composer. He was actually a philosopher, I believe, so his music's pretty good. He has a lot of harpsichord music, really good Baroque music there. So, this is where it gets interesting. My roommate woke me up one morning. He said we were going to Mass. So I wasn't forewarned about this. He said we were going to Mass. I really didn't care to go or not. I guess I was curious to see what it was. So this is probably a month into college, I think. It was quite a bit into college. My roommate went to Mass every month, every 2 months. He wasn't a good practicing Catholic. However, him taking me to Mass those times definitely had a beneficial effect in my life, even if I didn't realize it or understand it. Even if I disliked it. So I definitely disliked it, as you'll see. But I did go because I enjoyed the socialness of it, just going to church and being with other high school friends or other college friends. So we'll see what my thoughts were. It wasn't the first Mass I went to. I believe I went to Mass with him that summer. After a long night of staying up and partying, I believe, and then waking up on his couch and then going to Mass with him and other friends. So I sat through that Mass. That was the first time I've been to church. I went to church in probably 2 years, and that was over the summer of 2020. I don't remember any of the thoughts I had. It was kind of boring, I guess. Didn't mind it terribly. But yeah, I'm kind of expanding upon my first thoughts of the Mass. So the priest immediately scared me. My old preacher didn't wear robes. See, I'm kind of exaggerating here just for the effects. But anyhow, my former preacher, brother, I won't say his name, but he wore a suit. We didn't call him father, we called him brother. To all cradle Catholics reading this, do understand that outsiders have no idea what is happening. I didn't understand the rituals. I didn't know the routine of those rituals either. The kneeling and standing was annoying. You see, I was lazy back then. The homily was even a bit boring compared to a Protestant sermon. I really didn't know. Yeah, at the time, I didn't hear many good homilies. I would take a homily over a sermon any day now. Anyhow, I really didn't understand why I had to cross my arms in an X while I walked toward the priest. Non-Catholics don't have to do this, I clarified, but my roommate thought you did. He didn't know I could just remain at the pew. So yeah, I was going up to get a blessing, but you shouldn't do that. Anyhow, I wanted to find a Baptist church on campus. So see, I was like, I was a Baptist growing up. I was comfortable with it. We went to church every Christmas, every Easter, and that was it. However, there was times like when I was 12, 13, I was going to vacation Bible school over the course of 5 days during the summer, or I would participate in the youth group. I would go to the events, I think the cookouts. spending the night in the church, that was a fun one. Playing hide and seek in this big Baptist church, that was a really fun memory. Yeah, just Sunday school. I'd go to that for a few months, every week at times, back when I was probably 12. And then my family would just stop going to church. And so, yeah, I was comfortable with it, I guess. And so that's why I considered going back to a Baptist church. But that was the first choice, I guess, just because I knew it. I grew up in it. However, hey, I forgot what I was going to say. There was another point I was going to make. I think a lot of my spirituality also came just from basketball. Back when I was in middle school, there's a lot of spirituality to basketball. Praying before games. Just you see like basketball players, they'll thank God when they're playing. They'll shoot a ball, then they'll do the sign of the cross or something. It's kind of funny to see. But yeah, just they have a certain spirituality, I guess. So that culture of basketball and like the Christian life, it goes hand in hand, really. There was a Christian basketball camp I went to one summer, and that it wasn't a Catholic basketball camp. It was probably not even a Baptist camp, but it was a good thing to go to when I was 14, 15 to go to that. I went to a Knights of Columbus free throw tournament. I won it one year. I won the local tournament. I was pretty good at basketball. I made, I think, 16 free throws in a row. That was my record. Anyhow, I don't want to become proudful about my middle school basketball career. So we'll continue. So see, I said I was lazy. That's right. Back during then, I was too lazy to actually go to church by myself, like to take the initiative to go find a church. So I just stuck with going with my friend whenever he went. I said he was not a devout Catholic. He didn't go to confession at all. He would miss Mass for a week or 2 weeks in a row. I think I made it to Mass 4 times my first semester in college. Now we're getting into when I started to become a writer. So see, I was never a writer in high school. I was good at writing. I passed the AP exams, but I never took on the character of a writer, just the reflectiveness it entails, the creativeness as well. That didn't come about until I developed as a person. So this is where it starts to take off. My first ever journal entry dated November 7th, 2020 reads, I am Chase Michael Snellen. So see, I even still had the name Chase back then. I tried to get away from that name when I became Catholic, just taking on a Christian name, growing in my appreciation of Saint Michael the Archangel. Never heard of the guy before I became Catholic. I don't want to spoil the story here, but yeah, there's a power in that, just changing your name. So of course I took my middle name, Michael. That's also my grandfather's name. The grandfather of mine passed away before I was born. So it's kind of special to have my grandfather's name to carry on that family legacy. I'll talk about this in the next few episodes, just how I do have a Catholic heritage in my family. My great grandpa being a devout Catholic, his father being a devout Catholic. Their names, Francis was one of them, and then Aloysius was the other. So those are both saint names, of course. They were in the Knights of Columbus. Yeah, I'm not going to spoil the story here, but yeah, I better not talk anymore, or I will spoil it. So I was born January 1st, 2022. And no, I did not misspeak. I was born on the new year. That's pretty cool. I think I got a $200 check from the doctor. I think my name was in the newspaper. I was the first baby born in Bardstown, my hometown. Maybe the first baby born in Kentucky for that year. Anyhow, I say I'm 18 years old. So I was only 18 when I wrote that journal entry. Today I went to Floyd's Fork, the hiking trail, with my father and younger siblings. I am currently an architect major. I'm not sure of my plans for next year. That's all for now. Keep discipline strong. So see, I was very big on discipline. The next dozen of entries for my journal are boring. On December 3rd, I just wrote boring day. So that's all I wrote for that day. And I kind of cut out the parts that don't have any purpose of being in an article like this. But I was writing about everything I did back then. So that's why this series will be interesting. You can see just like the development, really. But I should have wrote more. Like, there's these important moments that I look back upon now. I didn't recognize that they were important at the time, so I wrote like a sentence about them, and I'd write like 3 sentences about the food I ate that day or something. But anyhow, so it was notably on November 26th, Thanksgiving. I did write grateful for family, friends, shelter, food, health, and God. So see, I was developing gratitude for life. That's very important. And I think just the Thanksgiving season reminded me of gratitude. So I was grateful for those things. I think I was praying for those things at the time. That's when I started to develop a prayer life, really, a nightly prayer life. I would lay in bed and just pray. I didn't pray much outside of that, of course. I think just having that time for prayer each day, that had a big effect on me. So it was on December 5th that I bought many books. Yeah, I'll say something about this. This was the first time I discovered half-price books. So this place was a very instrumental place for me in those college years. You'll see in the second semester, I went there like 10 times in those 4 short months. I was going every week or every other week, twice a week, even sometimes. I was bored in college a lot, especially during that second semester. But anyhow, like going to that bookstore and just roaming through it, just going on the adventure of me being a guy who was unfamiliar with almost all the authors and just walking through the halls. If I see a writer who has like tons of books in his section, I knew he was important, so I would read the back of those books. And I learned a ton about literature during that time. And I bought many books, of course. I read a few of them, I think. And you'll see what books I read as we continue this series here. So yeah, half-price books. I definitely recommend anyone to go there. If you can find a good one, you can find some. They're called outlets, I believe, and they sell any book in the store for like $3. So it's kind of crazy. You'll walk out with a book from 1910, a rare book you can't even find online, for $3. So yeah, as you can see, like I am a book collector. If you can see the shelf behind me, I've been grateful in my life just to find so many cheap books. The Ante-Nicene Fathers series cost me quite a bit of money, but I found half the series for like $100, $200 of the half-price books. And those classics, the Britannica Great Book series, I found those for $45 total. So I'm definitely not a wealthy man by any means. I only work part-time. But it's just books, just collecting books. There is something there. Something about just having many books. Just constantly trying to grow in your own knowledge about the world. Pondering these big questions. So the next day, I created an extensive list of vocabulary. So yeah, this list still exists on my computer. I probably will never let it see the light of day. Maybe after I'm dead, it can be released. However, it was just me. I looked up YouTube videos, I believe, and just vocabulary words. I made just a list of vocabulary words. That's what it was. Probably 200, 300 vocabulary words. So what I did with that list, the next day I wrote a short story called The Recluse. So that was my first short story. Thus were the seeds of my writing career planted. So yeah, that short story, it used to be up on medium.com. I think I took it down. You probably can't find it anymore. And I probably don't want to re-upload it. Maybe if I revise it. It's a pretty good story. However, it's bad writing, terrible writing. My first story, of course. Just about a man who wakes up in the woods and he doesn't have a memory. So it has something very simple. Anyhow, the early drafts of that short story were terrible because I put that into that short story using almost all of those big vocabulary words. So you can't even make it through a sentence without reading 3 words that you'd have to look up in a dictionary. Just imagine that. However, I think we'll end this video here. We didn't get far. We finished 2020. Actually, we didn't, but we'll finish that in the next video because this is where it starts to pick up. Start to read the Bible, and not to spoil too much of the story, but I read the entire Bible, so that played a major part in my spiritual life. And if you want to spoil the story for yourself, go read this full Medium article. You'll spoil most of it. However, I'll continue making videos for this series. Yeah, I guess just to recap, 2020, that was the year I left high school. I set out to college. I started to leave behind the ways of boyhood and ventured forth to the ways of being a man. And so that's really how I found God and how I found Catholicism. Taking those first steps upon that journey. All right, everyone, have a good one. Okay, let me try to figure out how to stop recording this video. I apologize. I was reading the article. I had to switch back, so I'm not going to edit these. I don't like editing videos like these. So everyone have a good day. Whenever you watch this, have a blessed day. And it's still not stopping for some reason, so we're going to try that again. Good day.